You're watching Sky News live from Westminster as a new era begins in British politics. Gordon Brown, the new Prime Minister, ending 10 years of waiting with a pledge to the nation.
I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain.
Tony Blair ends his reign as PM and MP in an unprecedented farewell to Parliament.
Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen and arrivederci.
MPs on all sides give him a standing ovation as he leaves to become Middle East envoy. Life after office already proving tricky. We're going to be hearing from the last man to hold Tony Blair's new job about the future. And we'll go back into Gordon Brown's past to see what drove the student activists from Fife to the door of number 10. Very good evening, it's 8 o'clock. You're watching Sky News live from a very wet Westminster. And tonight, Gordon Brown is Britain's new Prime Minister. Tony Blair's no longer PM, no longer even an MP, already preparing to take on his new role as Middle East envoy. In the next hour, we'll examine an extraordinary day of drama in Westminster. We'll look back at the new Prime Minister's past and look forward to the future for Tony Blair, hearing from the last man to hold his new job. First, the story of the few short hours that ended many long years of waiting for Gordon Brown. At long last, it was Prime Minister Gordon Brown, Labour's 6th, the 52nd in British history. With his wife Sarah at his side, Mr. Brown promised to be a listening leader, promising change.
This will be a new government with new priorities. And I have been privileged to have been granted the great opportunity to serve my country. And at all times, I will be strong in purpose, steadfast in will, resolute in action, in the service of what matters to the British people, meeting the concerns and aspirations of our whole country.
He spoke of a new style of politics, harnessing the best of British.
I will reach out beyond narrow party interest. I will build a government that uses all the talents. I will invite men and women of goodwill to contribute their energies in a new spirit of public service to make our nation what it can be. And I am convinced that there is no weakness in Britain today that cannot be overcome by the strength of the British people. On this day, I remember words that have stayed with me since my childhood and which matter a great deal to me today. My school motto, I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain. And now let the work of change begin. Thank you.
The transfer of power couldn't have been smoother, but judging by his words, the contrast in leadership priorities could be sharp. Just hours earlier, Tony Blair was moving out and moving on. After a decade in Downing Street, it came by the chestful. Chattels and achievements, furniture and failures. Was that a spinning machine or just an exercise bike? Personal and political baggage, now the stuff of memories and memoirs. Wearing a cheerful smile and his lucky brogues, Mr. Blair left for his 318th and last Prime Minister's question time. He was planning an elegant exit, but the cries of anti-war protesters along the way offered a reminder of the perils of Iraq, a blot on Mr. Blair's legacy and a warning to Gordon Brown. Inside the chamber, a rare apology and a tribute to the troops.
I've never come across people of such sustained dedication, courage and commitment. I am truly sorry about the dangers that they face today in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know some may think that they face these dangers in vain. I don't, and I never will. I believe they are fighting for the security of this country and the wider world against people who would destroy our way of life.
But Iraq dominated, but there were lighter moments as the old charmer of the chamber dealt with questions on Europe.
I'm afraid we can't agree on the treaty, but as for his good wishes to me, may I say to him, Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen and arrivederci.
Faith?
I think I'm really not bothered about that one.
And employment.
Surname Blair, first name T.
Or rather, lack of it.
This form is important to you. Take good care of it, P45.
The tributes poured in on the most civilised day in the Commons anyone could remember.
For all of the heated battles across this dispatch box, for 13 years he has led his party, for 10 years he has led our country, and no one can be in any doubt in terms of the huge efforts he has made in terms of public service.
As the Prime Minister knows, he and I have had a number of disagreements, not least upon Iraq. But in relation to our personal dealings, he has been unfailingly courteous, and I would like to express my gratitude to him for that.
But I want to say that he treated me with the greatest of courtesy. I had many things that I disagreed with him on, but we faced them.
They seemed almost sorry to see him go. Back at number 10, there was a private sign-off with staff and advisors before the Blair clan emerged from that famous black door for the very last time. A final family photograph, posing for the feral beasts, as Mr. Blair had recently called the media. And Cherie made it clear she wouldn't miss them either. Then the ultimate duty, to round off his long, long farewell, a trip to the palace to tender his resignation to the Queen. Labour's longest-serving Prime Minister would leave just plain Mr. Blair. With a vacant sign up at number 10, Gordon Brown was wasting no time, clearing out his desk at the Treasury and heading off to take up the job he'd always dreamed of. After all, he's waited 10 years to succeed Tony Blair as Prime Minister. First stop, though, Buckingham Palace. That journey along the Mall a chance to consider the task ahead as Mr. Brown planned a new style of politics. He spent 55 minutes with the Queen accepting her invitation to govern. Gordon Brown emerged as Britain's new Prime Minister. A well-known quantity, but determined to prove he is a man of fresh ideas, a leader for a new political age. And he hasn't been resting since then. A real flurry of activity. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins me. What are you hearing?
Well, Jeremy, as we speak over there in his room behind the Speaker's chair in the Commons, Gordon Brown is seeing quite a few ministers who are either on the move, in some cases leaving the government. Let me first of all, Jeremy, tell you what we can confirm. Patricia Hewitt, the Health Secretary, much criticised by MPs, is leaving the government. Now, she says that she told Gordon Brown a month or so ago she wanted to leave the government for family reasons. She has elderly relatives in Australia. She wants to spend more time with them. There is an exchange of letters in which Mr. Brown, I gather, makes clear that he wanted her to stay in the government, and I'm told he did offer her another job, but she is definitely leaving the government. We all already know about Valerie Amos, Lord's leader. She's been nominated for a job as an EU envoy to the African Union. Now, let me tell you what MPs and ministers are saying tonight. These are unconfirmed. Harriet Harman, who won that shock win on Sunday, is going to get a government job as well as party chair, I'm told. Could well be leader of the Commons and combine the two jobs. Now, some MPs are saying rather cynically this is so that taxpayers can pay her salary rather than the Labour Party. It's been taken for granted that Alistair Darling will be the Chancellor. Mr. Alan Johnson could go to Health, or he could go to the Home Office, I'm told. The other candidate for Health is John Hutton, currently Work and Pensions. Jeff Hoon, former Defence Secretary, now Minister for Europe, is being talked of Mr. Brown's Chief Whip. And now here is a shock. Mr. Brown talked today about this government of all the talents. Baroness Williams, Shirley Williams, the veteran of the Callaghan cabinet, now in the House of Lords and a Liberal Democrat, has been spotted, I'm told, in the outer office outside Gordon Brown's office, and I'm told she is possibly going to be offered some sort of advisory job by Gordon Brown. Also talk of a possible comeback for Charles Clarke. He tells me he's not heard anything, doesn't know.
Well, they're all telling me all afternoon, oh, we haven't had a call yet. I mean, they're all being very coy about it.
We've talked earlier today about Margaret Beckett. I saw her on her way to Gordon Brown's office looking very forlorn. Looks as though she's going there to be told the bad news.
There are some big jobs that you haven't covered yet. I mean, Foreign Office, Home Office, those sort of things.
Foreign Office, the hot tip is David Miliband, youngish, 40-ish. I'm told by a minister on his team he's been a great success in that department. He tells me he'd make a great Foreign Secretary. Home Office could be Johnson, may not. He may go to health, crucial job. Gordon Brown mentioned health, didn't he, in that speech there today. Ed Balls, we're not sure where he's going yet. There's talk of the Education Ministry being split into perhaps schools on the one side, science on the other, technology, because Mr Brown has identified that as one of his priorities.
And when are we likely to hear, do you think? Not till tomorrow now?
Officially, the Prime Minister's spokesman is saying tomorrow lunchtime. One other piece of news I'm hearing, those two by-elections, Mr Blair, of course, is going. Also, there's a by-election pending in Southall in West London, July the 19th. So a dash to hold those two by-elections before the summer recess. One minister said to me today, Gordon is 100 miles an hour man. Well, he seems to be doing it with his appointments and also those two potentially tricky by-elections.
Certainly been fairly frantic so far. John, thank you very much indeed. Well, in his first speech as Prime Minister, Gordon Brown promised quite a lot. He promised a new government. He promised a new style of government. Jerry Jones has been looking at some of the people who may help him with a new government with new priorities, what it's likely to mean.
There's something in the air at Westminster, across the country.
I've got about 4 minutes left.
This is what change feels like. Since 1997, we've had the small matter of 2 general elections, and yet only today comes a real sense of a shift in the balance of power. So, after an extremely long chat with the Queen, this is Gordon Brown turning back into Downing Street for the first time as Prime Minister. This is, after all, just a shift that we're seeing in the Labour leadership, but it will have a radical impact on the climate of British politics. New policies will come, and soon. They won't satisfy everyone. Critics of the war in Iraq aren't going anywhere. But Gordon Brown wants to shift the focus onto other issues. Will there be surprises? Personnel and policy?
I think there'll be a lot of surprises, actually. I think people should prepare the way, because I think he will be planning this for a long time, and he is a supreme strategist. So I think we'll see a lot of change underway and an awful lot of really exciting developments.
Keep up the good work.
And those developments will involve a new government, of course. John Cruddas here, who ran a formidable deputy leadership campaign, is one of those hoping to be brought into the fold. Others affect not to be too bothered.
Well, in politics, at this level, you're not masters or mistresses of your own destiny. It's up to other people to make decisions. But certainly what I have at the centre of all my politics is that I'm the MP for Salford.
The funny thing is, for all the media hype surrounding this event, not one of the current generation of big Labour hitters has come down here to speak to journalists. And you know why that is? Well, they're all sitting in their offices, waiting by the phone, hoping Gordon Brown will give them a job. Only those stepping back from the fray could afford to look relaxed.
And then, of course, for others, the excitement of waiting in the phone call, or Gordon and choosing his cabinet.
Excitement, that's one way of putting it.
Well, look, it is a very exciting time for people. There's no greater privilege than being asked to serve the country.
Going to take you straight up to Trimdon, the Prime Minister departing there, the former Prime Minister, just hours out of office. His first port of call after he handed in his resignation to the Queen was to head up to Sedgefield and his old constituency there. He's explained to the people why he is no longer going to be their MP. He's already applied to join the Chiltern Hundreds, an honorary title that allows him to step down immediately from the job of constituency MP that he's held for the last 24 years. And in his final words to his Labour Party members there, he said thank you. He spoke to the members for about 20 minutes, telling them that why he'd stood down to take on this role of the Middle East peace envoy. And he opened his address to a packed hall saying, it's good to be back at the place where it all began, a place that has sustained me through all the years. Gerard Tubbs been watching it all unfold there. Gerard.
Yeah, he's gone. Of course, he came here, as you said, no longer as the MP. That announcement that he had stepped down and taken the Chiltern Hundreds as he was still on the train. And we also got the confirmation, of course, that he'd taken or had been given the envoy's job whilst he was on the train as well. No plane, no huge security contingent, a reduced police presence up here. Couldn't find his car when he got off the train. The grass hadn't been cut as it usually is every time we've been here when he came up as Prime Minister. So already he's noticing a few changes. And I would imagine he'll be able to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief now. He's just left, as you saw, left the constituency Labour Club behind me and gone the couple of miles down to Mirabella, his constituency house named after the plum trees in the garden that he's had all the time that he's been up here. And he will be able to sleep in his bed tonight knowing that he hasn't got the cares of the world, at least on his shoulders in this constituency. Now we can start looking across to the Middle East.
Let's talk about the Middle East. Thanks very much, Gerard. Well, it didn't take long for Mr. Blair to find a new job, and his role as Middle East peace envoy, as Gerard was talking about, has been confirmed this evening. Sky's Middle East correspondent Dominic Waghorn looks at the challenges awaiting the former Prime Minister as he tries to unite a divided region.
Tony Blair said the Middle East would dominate the end of his term in office, but he's left it for afterwards.
The only way of bringing stability and peace to the Middle East is a two-state solution, which means a state of Israel that is secure and confident of its security, and a Palestinian state that is not merely viable in terms of its territory, but in terms of its institutions and governance. I believe it is possible to do that, but it will require a huge intensity of focus and work.
But on the streets of the occupied West Bank, Mr. Blair's leap into the cauldron of Middle Eastern politics isn't popular with everyone.
He is the bad man in the world. He is the enemy of the Palestinian.
We don't forget the role of Britain in the unfair war in Iraq, and he was directly involved. I can say that he was kind of a puppet to Mr. Bush.
Tony Blair's close association with President Bush and the war in Iraq is a problem for him in the Arab world. Many say he's too close to Israel too. Pictures like these, wearing a Jewish skull cap in his last visit to Israel, haven't helped. But the Palestinian Authority is giving his appointment a cautious welcome.
We need help. So the idea of appointing an envoy for the quartet is an excellent idea, and we welcome it.
Well, I'm happy to see you.
Tony Blair was among the first to call for a Palestinian state almost 6 years ago. And his experience here spans a decade, back to his early visits as a fresh-faced new Prime Minister to Gaza.
Blair, I think, has the much wider perspective than many other leaders in the West of the highs and the lows of what's happening here. And I think, yes, I do think Blair knows what he's getting into. Don't forget, Northern Ireland seemed just as an intractable problem when he got into it 10 years ago. So I do think Blair knows where he's coming to.
Tony Blair's appointment comes as the Middle East lurches in another unpredictable direction, with Hamas's takeover of Gaza and Israel's response to that new threat, creating an even more uncertain future. Underlining that, fighting between Israelis and Palestinian militants in Gaza claim more lives, including civilians and a child. Tony Blair's always sounded committed to helping bring peace to this deeply troubled region. He failed as a head of state. Can he now do more as an envoy?
Dominic's in Jerusalem live for us now. Evening, Dominic. What's been the most recent reaction to the news of Tony Blair heading out for this new envoy role?
Jeremy, it's a mixture of excitement tempered with some Middle Eastern scepticism. The excitement that someone with his political skills, his track record as one of the architects of the Northern Ireland peace process, is taking this job at what is a very uncertain time in the Middle East. The scepticism because he brings with him a lot of baggage. On the street, if you talk to Palestinians, they say this is a man who invaded Iraq with the American President George Bush. As we heard in that report, many regard Tony Blair as George Bush's puppet.
talk to Palestinian leaders and they say that they're more forgiving. They say that Tony Blair was one of the first to announce plans or say he'd like to see a Palestinian state, but they say he hasn't really delivered as a Prime Minister on that aim. He does have support amongst Arab leaders and leaders in the region. Many feel that he's someone they can do business with. And where he differs from other envoys in the past who have, on the whole, failed here, is that he does have the ear of Israel and of Washington. So when he comes here and focuses on this hugely intensive effort, as he describes it, to build up this potential Palestinian state, when he comes up with the plans and says what he'd like to see done, it will be much harder for America and Israel to say no.
Dominic, thanks very much. Dominic Waghorn live for us in Jerusalem. Well, today, Gordon Brown said that he would do his utmost to meet the challenges of running the country. He said that he will listen to the people, but it may take him a long time to hear everything they've got to say to him. Our correspondents have been looking at the challenges that face the new Prime Minister, both at home and abroad.
The new man has a difficult trick to perform: distance himself from the war on terror while still prosecuting it under a different name. He will fight it using the military, the intelligence services, and economics. Because Gordon Brown is an Atlanticist, agreeing with Tony Blair that the UK must stand shoulder to shoulder with the United States. What he won't do is make jokes with US presidents about sharing the same toothpaste. Gordon Brown was part of the process which took us to war in Iraq, and it's unlikely he'll pull all the British troops out for several years. On Israel and Palestine, he's already used a new term, calling for a Middle East economic roadmap. So there'll be more money for more countries, more money for MI5 and MI6, and there'll be more of the same for the UK. The war on terror will continue. It just won't be called that anymore.
As far as the special relationship with Washington's concerned, the timing of Gordon Brown's succession could be better. This current president, languishing in his own polls, has little to offer a new international partner at this stage in his game. Certainly from a British point of view, hearty handshakes with George Bush hold no currency. The president's all-take and no-give history with Tony Blair makes any new association politically risky. Add to that next year's US election with its certainty of change, but uncertainty yet of result. Much more than his predecessor, Gordon Brown has an under-publicized affection for this country. He visits often and has lots of friends here. So expect him to keep his powder dry until they elect a new successor to the White House, someone to cultivate for a longer-term relationship with the greater possibility of reward.
Gordon Brown's biggest environmental challenge is going to be energy. He has to decide whether to push the nuclear button and start a new generation of nuclear power stations. Planning is going to be an issue, as it will be for renewable energies as well. But he's going to have to get going on them if he's to meet the government's targets. Then he'll have to work on driving changes in our green behaviour. Do you tax us out of our bad habits or try to coax us out of them? Air passenger duty, road pricing, bin taxes, all controversial. Then there are the negotiations to reach a global Green Deal. With the Kyoto Protocol about to expire, but a change of heart in the White House, Gordon Brown has a chance to shape the diplomacy. But you'll have to get Britain's house in order. Carbon dioxide emission levels are rising here.
Crime and security is at the top of every Prime Minister's agenda. But for Gordon Brown, the issues are now more complex and controversial than they've ever been. A string of high-profile blunders at the Home Office forced his predecessor to split that department in two. And with the Home Secretary John Reid now throwing in the towel, who does Mr. Brown trust to sort things out? And how on earth can he get a grip on prison overcrowding? Can a Gordon Brown government still be tough on crime when there's nowhere to put the criminals?
Gordon Brown has vowed to make the NHS his priority. The debts are being cleared, but wards have been closed and jobs have been cut. Nurses have threatened industrial action. Doctors are furious about bungled attempts to streamline their training. The new Prime Minister will have to win back the support of staff if he's to revive the NHS. Waiting lists for surgery are at a record low, driven down by tough government targets. But many doctors and nurses are concerned about the amount of political control over what they do. And Gordon Brown will face calls for an independent board to run the NHS in future. Record funding has brought new hospitals and the very latest equipment. But MRSA is still a big problem, as is the lack of dentists. Gordon Brown must prove he has the right prescription for the NHS.
Whatever Gordon Brown's hopes and ambitions as Prime Minister, the first few months are almost certain to be dominated by what happens here. The future of Europe is one of those issues that every Prime Minister must just hope would disappear. And for Gordon Brown, it promises to be a rough ride. There is a feeling that France and Germany, with dynamic new leaders in Sarkozy and Merkel, are trying to drive Europe forward. And they're waiting to see what kind of leader Mr. Brown will be. The impression is that he's slightly suspicious of Europe, certainly from his time as Chancellor, and a real contrast to Mr. Blair and his love for everything European. He knows that too much enthusiasm for what goes on here risks turning public opinion at home, and the Conservatives know that as well. And there's always the looming shadow of the R word, a referendum, and that's enough to send a chill down his spine.
Gordon Brown's always been very keen to remind us about the successes of his decade at number 11 Downing Street, but a lot of the problems he created there will follow him next door. He can lay claim to an independent Bank of England, low inflation and a relatively strong economy, but his public spending splurge is going to have to be reined in by his successor. Rising taxes and household bills are making it increasingly difficult for wage earners to make ends meet. And then there's the pensions crisis. From the cradle to the grave, Brown's Britain has some serious problems to face.
Well, his predecessor, Tony Blair, has announced that he's not only standing down as Prime Minister, but MP as well. No longer MP for Sedgefield after 24 years. Well, let's go straight across to Trimdon Labour Club, where he's just been explaining his departure, and talk to his long-time agent, John Burton. Very good evening, Mr. Burton. Bit of a bombshell, him suddenly going so abruptly.
It's all happened very quickly. I started off this morning as agent to the Prime Minister. This afternoon I was agent to the MP, and tonight I'm redundant. So I've had a great day, really.
Are you upset? Are you disappointed at him going so quickly?
No, we were saddened a bit, but it's been a funny day, and it's been a mixture of sadness and, of course, everybody in the room was so pleased that he was doing such a great job on the worldwide stage as envoy to the Middle East. They were proud of him, and they were happy that he was doing that. And of course, with that job, you can't possibly be a local MP. So, you know, what we want now is a good local MP to get on and look after the constituency.
So seriously, you're telling me that you didn't all feel let down by him today?
Not at all. No one felt let down at all. We've had a great MP and a great Prime Minister, and he's done a wonderful job for the country. He's done a great job in the constituency. I mean, life is entirely different even in this village where I'm standing, you know, to what it was 10 years ago. We had 15% unemployment 10 years ago. It's the norm now. The minimum wage has made a difference. The school has gone up from 30% passes at 5 GCSEs to 80%. I mean, life has, a new community hospital 4 miles away. Life's just changed, so we're very proud of him and we don't feel let down.
And life's changing for you as well, a relationship, a political relationship and a friendship that goes back 24 years or more.
That's right. And it's a big change. I mean, I'll see him. He got a big cheer when he said that he was going to keep his house in the constituency. Everybody cheered. And he said that he was going to run his foundation for sport in the northeast, coaching at the highest level for young sportsmen. And he's going to run that from his house. So we're going to see plenty of him in the future, I think.
And what sort of man or woman are you going to be looking for to replace him? Another potential Prime Minister, you hope?
No, I don't think we're looking for another potential. We cannot follow Tony Blair. We need a good local MP, hard-working, who'll look after the constituents in the Sedgefield area.
John Burton, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Well, joining me again, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joining me with the most immediate of events here in Westminster. You're getting flashes and messages coming in by the moment, John.
Well, we've now got the letters, the exchange of letters between Patricia Hewitt and Gordon Brown. Very warm tribute to Patricia Hewitt from Gordon Brown. Some MPs may, and some of her critics may find that surprising, given that she really has been in a storm over health in recent months. Now, the key point about this in Mr. Brown's letter is, after paying tribute to her work, is talking about what she's going to do in the future. You told me some time ago you wanted to focus your attention on international issues. I'm pleased, therefore, you've agreed to chair a manifesto committee developing our policy on Europe. No controversy there, then. This will be of critical importance to the party in developing emerging policy. I know you'll join other colleagues in chairing these important reviews. So more than one review there. Sounds a bit like the Tories with their reviews, doesn't it, that David Cameron's having. And then she goes on to say in her letter, she said, when we met last month, I explained I decided for personal reasons to stand down from government. While I very much appreciate your offer for me to remain in cabinet, I feel this is the right moment for me to go, give more time to my constituency, my family, something my family says long overdue. So, as we've said a moment ago, she apparently has elderly relatives in Australia, wants to go and see them. So, Mr. Brown, if it is a sacking and it's being portrayed as a resignation, he seems to have done it rather deftly and rather skillfully.
Just a word, I didn't get round to asking John Burton about a possible by-election date, but there is not only Sedgefield, Tony Blair's constituency, but Southall, Ealing as well. What's the word about when they could be?
The word on the terrace before the rains came down from some MPs from the northeast of England who are close to these things is that they would rush ahead and try and hold the Sedgefield by-election July the 19th. That's a week before Parliament breaks up on the 26th of July. That's the other possible date. They're both Thursdays. And of course Ealing Southall, where the veteran MP Piara Cabra died a couple of weeks ago. He was 82. Ealing Southall the same day. Labour MPs say they want to learn the lesson from Hartlepool, where they waited and they waited, some MPs say because of the vanity of Peter Mandelson, and delayed that by-election. They got the fright of their lives and almost lost it.
John, thanks for all the up-to-date information. More from Westminster in a moment. You're watching Sky News. It's just after 8. It's on our website, sky.com/news. The virtual cabinet. Find out who the new PM will be considering for his team. A fresh challenge. We're going to hear from the last person to hold Tony Blair's new job as Middle East envoy.
At B&Q, we've cooked up an irresistible offer. Now you can enjoy a mouth-watering third off all select kitchens. So how's that for starters? Get more out of your kitchen at B&Q.
Play-proof styles from Shockwaves, making a splash with a red-hot new look. Think shocking red. Think Shockwaves. Shockwaves.
Style attracts play.
Light, fluffy lemon soufflés made with fresh West Country cream. And 4 are yours, absolutely free, when you spend over £35 on food or drink at M&S until Saturday. This is not just summer food. This is M&S summer food.
Only Velux blinds fit Velux roof windows perfectly. With our unique pick-and-click system, they can be fitted in minutes. And they come in a huge range of designs and colours. For more information, call 0800 980 7180 or visit our website.
Quit smoking, and this is what you're up against. Smoking increases the number of receptors in your brain that thrive on nicotine. Take their supply away, they go mad. They won't let you break the habit without a fight. Nicotine reduces cravings because it contains therapeutic nicotine, so you can wean the beasts off gradually and give your willpower a fighting chance to do the rest. Tame the beasts and quit with nicotine.
Football this July on Sky Sports. The Copa America reaches its climax. Liverpool, Fulham and Portsmouth head to Hong Kong for the Asia Trophy, while Arsenal welcome PSG, Valencia and Inter Milan for the Emirates Cup. And the legends of football return in the Central, Scottish and London Masters. July on Sky Sports. For details on how to join in, call 08702 407 726.
Good evening again from Westminster. Tony Blair, no longer PM, no longer an MP, heading for a new job as the Middle East envoy for the Quartet, while Gordon Brown begins his new life in number 10. Well, we can hear from a man who knows both of these men who've dominated British politics very well, the new Prime Minister and the old one. He was the last person to hold Tony Blair's new job as well. James Wolfenson joins us now. He's the former president of the World Bank, former Middle East envoy. He's in New York. Mr. Wolfenson, very good evening to you. Good to talk to you.
Good evening.
Tell us a little bit, first of all, about the new man that we find as our Prime Minister here, Gordon Brown. You've had quite a bit to do with him. What do you make of him?
Well, over many years I've worked with him on issues relating to development and to poverty around the world. I've had less to do with him on matters that are truly to do with the United Kingdom. But in the field of international expansion and international development, you'd have to say that Gordon is one of the leading figures in the world today, and I think from that point of view, you're very lucky to have him as Prime Minister.
What's he going to bring to the job? You said obviously you understand more of what he offers to the wider world than domestic policies. So start there. What of his aims, his aspirations, what he can bring of Britain to a wider world?
Well, the first thing is that he understands the nature of the growth that's going to take place in the years ahead. We have a planet of 6 billion people now. It's going to grow to 9 billion. And nearly all the next 3 billion are going to the developing countries. And that presents us with a challenge of giving them a livelihood, but more importantly, in terms of the UK, or at least as importantly, there are opportunities for trade, there are opportunities for investment, and Britain has historically played a great role in the expansion of developing countries, and more recently perhaps less, and I think Gordon Brown is really anxious to pick up the pace and assume a leadership position for the United Kingdom.
He's long held Africa very dear to his heart, something he clearly feels strongly about, something that he feels Britain should be doing to help Africa.
Right. Well, as you know, the place in the world which has least opportunity, which for the last 20 years has shown no growth in the incomes per capita of the people there, is Africa, and it's 700-800 million people. And I think in his travels in Africa, and certainly in his work with me at the World Bank, he's demonstrated both a sense of what is right in terms of those areas, but also sees, I think, that historically this has been an area of great opportunity for the United Kingdom in terms of natural resources, but as we go forward, in terms of economic expansion.
Whilst clearly he's going to have an eye on the world stage, he's been the man who's had his hand firmly on the purse strings in the UK as well. You're a man who's worked for the World Bank. You understand these things. You understand matters of prudence and so on. Has he impressed you?
Well, I think he's impressed me very much, and he's had the benefit of a very good team around him. I think I've come to know with him Ed Balls and Tom Scholar and Shriti Vadera, all of whom I think may play some role with him in his future responsibilities. But he has a capacity to attract real talent and, in my opinion, has been very realistic about what should be done in the UK. And by making the UK work, it gives him credibility with the rest of the world.
If we can turn to the former Prime Minister now, Tony Blair. He's heading off to do a job that was very similar to one that you held until quite recently, an envoy to the Middle East for the Quartet. If you could just help us to understand a little bit more about the Quartet and what its aspirations might be and what you understand he may better bring to the job now, what the new thrust of that role of envoy will be.
Well, the quartet is the United States, Russia, the United Nations, and the European Union. That's 4 parties that constitute the quartet. And they're the group that is trying to negotiate a peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but more important than just a peace, try and build economic viability and sustainability in the area. I had the task of dealing mainly with the economic areas and to a certain extent the framework of governance. But it is my hope that they will allow Prime Minister Blair to get much more into the area of negotiations of the terms of an understanding between the 2 parties. It's not clear to me that he's been given that responsibility. But if he hasn't, I think he might feel a sense of frustration being kept outside what is the really main game, which is bringing the Palestinians and the Israelis together for either a 2-state solution or some other solution which is not apparent. I think with his standing and his knowledge, he'd be an admirable person to participate at the center of the negotiations.
It suggests, am I getting a hint of the fact that it was pretty frustrating at times for you trying to guide this roll through and to try and make some progress in the region, and presumably going to be even more difficult now with the breakaway of Hamas and the control they have over Gaza?
Well, I had some difficulty because I had the self-image that I should make peace, but my mandate was more restrictive. And it is my hope that with someone with the experience of Tony Blair, that the quartet will realize that this is not a part-time activity or even an activity that can be delegated to a lower level, those senior diplomats. I think it needs someone of stature who is given the responsibility, certainly to report back to the quartet, but is given enough muscle that he can actually speak with authority in trying to bring about a deal.
If you had a word of advice tonight for Tony Blair as he heads into this new mission, what might it be?
Make sure you have the proper mandate.
James Wolfenson, very good of you to talk to us. Thank you very much, and I'm sure Tony Blair will heed the words of advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you're looking, if you're just checking our screen at the moment, you may well see that our sources at Sky News and our political department are saying that they're hearing that by-election for Sedgefield, Tony Blair's constituency for the last 24 years, will be on Thursday, July the 19th, so just 3 weeks away from tomorrow. Well, Gordon Brown said today that he owed his success in politics to the education he received at his local high school. So what was it that took him from Kirkcaldy and Fife to number 10 Downing Street? Sky Scotland correspondent James Matthews has gone in search of the real James Gordon Brown.
The new Prime Minister used to like a pint in here. To understand what made Gordon Brown the man, you need to go back in time. Gordon Brown, the party animal who would be Prime Minister. His image now is nothing like it was back here in 1970s Edinburgh. Here he was the thinker, the drinker and the charmer. It's Gordon Brown before he was famous. Taking a journey through Gordon Brown's past takes a Ford Popular. Gordon Brown doesn't drive these days because he only has the sight of one eye. But he did learn, and when he did, it was in a Ford Popular. It was the family car when he grew up in the town of Kirkcaldy. James Gordon Brown, the middle of 3 sons. His dad was the local minister here at St Bryce-Dale's Church, and he taught young Gordon how to drive in his Ford Pop with its 10 horsepower, 3 gears and pop-out air vents. Off-road, his dad's teachings were in moral compassion and in social responsibility. Lessons from a man of the cloth in helping those least able, now famously known as Gordon Brown's moral compass. At school, the young Gordon was a clever, sporty child. As part of a local experiment, he was fast-tracked through the education system, along with other bright kids. So he finished high school aged 16. It was at high school that Gordon Brown suffered an injury that many say changed him psychologically. He was playing rugby in a staff versus pupils match when he took a knock on the head. That led to a detached retina. He lost the sight in one eye, and he almost lost it in the other eye. It took lengthy periods of pioneering surgery and of lying down in the dark. People who knew him say that nearly losing his sight gave Gordon Brown a new urgency to achieve, to get things done. At the age of 16, Gordon Brown crossed the River Forth for Edinburgh University to study history. And as a student, he soon tasted political success. This was Gordon Brown's entry into politics. The student politician with the flowing locks who became university rector. It was a big deal at the time. And an even bigger deal when he took on senior academics and officials for the right to chair the university court, and won. The university establishment loathed it, the notion that one of this lot, a mere student, could hold a key position on its governing body. Little wonder that the young Gordon Brown was soon being courted by the great and the good in the Labour Party. One day, son, it'll all be yours. Thereafter, for Gordon Brown, there were jobs lecturing in politics at university, researching and producing as a journalist at Scottish television. And it was in 1983 that he finally took the turning for Westminster, becoming the MP for Dunfermline East. And the rest is political history. James Matthews, Sky News, on Gordon Brown's old stomping ground.
Well, tonight there isn't just a new man in Downing Street, there is a new woman. Sarah Brown has now stepped into the role of Britain's First Lady, a job that's not without its own challenges. Sky's Sarah Hughes reports.
How do you like being the Prime Minister's wife, Sarah?
She's been the First Lady in waiting for long enough. Sarah Brown's time has come. But is she prepared for her new life at number 10? Novelist Kathy Lett has been friends with Sarah for 18 years.
Sarah's ready. Yeah, she's had enough time to prepare. She's very down to earth. She's passionately political, but not in a pushy way. She will make an impact, and the country will like her. They'll respect her. She's very dignified, but she does have a quite wicked and mischievous sense of humour, which will come out more, I hope, because she can be a party girl, not just a political party girl. We might get her dancing on the odd tabletop.
She was born Sarah Macaulay in Buckinghamshire in 1963 and spent her early childhood in Tanzania. When she was 7, her parents split up and Sarah moved to North London with her mother. She was educated here at Ackland Burley Comprehensive and later Camden High School for Girls. Academically, she shone, and her career in PR was equally high-flying. She founded a consultancy with her friend Julia Hobsbawm, and her job led her into Gordon Brown's life. They married in Scotland in 2000, and Sarah gave up work when she learned she was expecting their first child. But then came tragedy, with the loss of their daughter Jennifer Jane when she was just 10 days old. Sarah now concentrates on Project Brown, supporting her husband and raising their 2 young children, John, who's now 3, and 11-month-old Fraser, who has cystic fibrosis. She also works tirelessly for charity. But the relative privacy Sarah has enjoyed is a thing of the past. Being the Prime Minister's wife is a privileged role, but there are pitfalls, as the gaffe-prone Cherie Blair soon discovered. In 2002, she was forced to apologise for remarks about Palestinian suicide bombers.
I would agree with that, as long as young people feel they've got no hope but to blow themselves up. We're never going to make progress, are we?
Next came the Bristol Flats scandal. When it emerged, convicted fraudster Peter Foster had helped Mrs Blair with a property deal.
I know I am in a very special position. I'm the wife of the Prime Minister. I have an interesting job and a wonderful family. But I also know I am not Superwoman.
And then this cringe-making rendition of a Beatles classic.
Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
What happens to Cherie, and we'll have learnt things from it. And I think the public interest was unprecedented, and I think that will continue, but I think people have got much smarter in working out how to deal with it, and I think that's a good thing, because it can be very, very difficult to deal with that intense media interest in very personal aspects of your life.
Friends say Sarah Brown is likely to be a quieter and more traditional consort than Cherie. And the years living next door to the Blairs will have taught her a lot. There's one lesson in particular she'd be wise to heed. Never answer the doorbell in your nightdress. Sarah Hughes, Sky News.
Well, our political editor Adam Bolton is presenting a special programme coming up in a few minutes at 9 o'clock. What's in store, Adam?
Well, Jeremy, so much has happened today. We've gone from Prime Minister Tony Blair to Prime Minister Gordon Brown, but we haven't had a chance, really, to talk about what's been going on. So I'll be joined by some senior politicians, including Kenneth Clarke, of course, who held just about every post other than Prime Minister under the Tories, a foe of Gordon Brown, and also Charles Kennedy, the Liberal Democrat leader, will be joining me, as well as Una King, the former Labour MP who's been travelling around the country with Gordon Brown as his warm-up woman. We'll be trying to assess what the Blair 10 years have meant and what the future holds for Gordon Brown. I'll also be talking to top members of Gordon Brown's new team, although they're pretty nervous tonight, so I can't tell you quite who. So all that coming up at 9.
Looks good, and looks like you found the right place, Adam. At least it's dry there. It's been a pretty wet old Westminster all this evening. Well, that's what's coming up on Sky News. Ahead for Gordon Brown, the business of forming a new government. For Tony Blair, it's straight to work in the Middle East. So while he looks to the future, finally we'll turn to what is now his past, ending with a decade of Tony Blair in 2.5 minutes.
For 18 years, 18 long years, my party has been in opposition. It could only say it could not do. Today, we are charged with the deep responsibility of government. We ran for office as New Labour. We will govern as New Labour. Education, education, and education.
A day like today, I mean, it's not a day for sort of sound bites, really, but I feel the hand of history upon our shoulder.
She was the people's princess, and that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever. This mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today.
We don't want your bloody war!
He has existing and active military plans for the use of chemical and biological weapons, which could be activated within 45 minutes.
Our determination to defend our values and our way of life is greater than their determination to cause death and destruction to innocent people. The rules of the game are changing. We have done more than any other government before us to put this green agenda right at the centre of government policy. People probably think Prime Minister shouldn't go on holiday at all, but I would frankly be reluctant to give up my holidays abroad. I may have been wrong. That's your call. But believe one thing, if nothing else. I did what I thought was right for our country. You're the future now, so make the most of it.
Light, fluffy lemon soufflés made with fresh West Country cream. And 4 are yours, absolutely free, when you spend over £35 on food or drink at M&S until Saturday. This is not just summer food. This is M&S summer food.
Introducing the new Lumix TZ3 from Panasonic. See it wide. See it close. See it all. With the world's smallest digital camera with 10 times optical zoom and 28mm wide-angle lens. Lumix from Panasonic. Ideas for life.
Getting you there. Fortis.
Hi, I'm Dawn, a product advisor at Holland & Barrett, and here's why our £4.99 super sale makes Holland & Barrett the place to be this summer. You can save an amazing £5 on our 1 litre cranberry aloe vera juice, now only £4.99. And there's a massive £14 off 1000mg EPA fish oil, now only £4.99. And thanks to our excellent training academy, we can help you out with good advice on any of our products. So hurry on down to Holland & Barrett. The £4.99 super sale is now on.
Sexy, last all-day lips, guaranteed to go the distance. Lipfinity from Max Factor. Is your lipstick still on?
Any time of the day or night, you might feel like a film. So we've made getting a Sky movie even easier. It's as easy as a click. There's over 300 to choose from. Take your pick. With one tiny click, you can open up a world of fantastic film on your PC at no extra cost. It's amazing what you can fit down a broadband connection. For Sky Movies whenever you like, just go to sky.com/anytime. Pick a flick and click.
Hello there, very good evening to you. Coming up in the next hour here on Sky News, the end of an era. Adam Bolton presents a special programme as Gordon Brown takes over the reins at number 10. And cabinet posts are now up for grabs, but who's in line for the top jobs?
Frost. As seen by Qatar Airways passengers, your 5-star airline.
You probably saw from the coverage at Westminster the rain showers. They were... Oh, just disappear for a moment, picking up my clicker. They were travelling like so across the southeast. Some of them developed quite heavy bursts, but there's some clear sky coming now, and at night, of course, even in the summer, clear sky helps the temperatures to drop. It looks like it'll be a chilly night, so if you plan to sleep rough or you're out in a tent, it's quite a cold night coming this night. At least it's a drying spell for the flood-hit areas, but the rains are gathering, and on Thursday, more rain will come into Ireland. This will be important for the flood-hit areas over here late Thursday. Those rains will get across Thursday night into Friday morning. There's mobility in northern latitudes of Europe. We're opening the Atlantic now to the atmosphere, and that'll bring various rain belts, but notably this one, right at the end of the shot here. This one, just coming out of the United States, will arrive on Saturday. But before that, first of all, the rain overnight, Thursday night, Friday morning, will clear away Friday, some sunshine, but then Saturday is the key one, I think, because on Saturday it could be persistent.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.